inspiring you to set the marketplace ablaze in partnership with an awesome and limitless God. This is the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast, and this isn't business as usual. Here's your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Bynes.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Shay Bynes, and our goal here is to inspire you to operate your business completely yielded and in partnership with our awesome and limitless God. Today's guest is life coach Stephanie Martin, and I loved this chat because God placed this idea on her heart of working by flow versus by force, which is so in line with the message in my book, Grace Over Grind, How Grace Will Take Your Business Where Grinding Can't. Stephanie shares about the shifts that God made in her mind and in her heart that completely changed how she operates her coaching business. Plus, these shifts that she has made has created a bit of a ripple effect in her clients' lives as well as the lives that her clients touch. It's the beauty of the kingdom of God. But before we get started with today's episode, I want to invite you to check out our newest podcast called Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Insider. It's for those who love this podcast, but really want to go deeper and hear from me as well as others on the KDE operations team about what we are experiencing and what we're learning behind the scenes with Kingdom Driven LLC. And boy, are we learning and experiencing a lot as we partner with God in growing this movement. We're in a really exciting time of kingdom-driven entrepreneur history, I guess you would say. Now, there's also an opportunity to ask us questions, submit topic ideas, check out my personal blog, plus enjoy some other goodies. So for more details, you can head over to kdeinsider.com. That's KDE for Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. KDEinsider.com. Now let's get started with today's conversation with Stephanie Martin. Listen in and enjoy. Stephanie Martin, how are you?
It's good to be here.
Well, it's good to have you. You and I connected probably, I think it was like March or so of last year. And you had reached out and just shared with me some of the things that the Lord had put on your heart about flow versus force and how it really resonated with you when you read Grace Over Grind and heard about the message and all of that. And so I want to explore your journey of what this has looked like for you in your business. I know you are you're a life coach to Christian entrepreneurs, right?
Yes. So it's a kind of blend of life and business coaching, but I do more of an emphasis on the inner healing, working through the wounds that hold them back and inhibit their success. So it is specifically for entrepreneurs. And then I have the added bonus of business skills that I can help them when they're ready for it.
Okay, that sounds good. So now how did you get started in life coaching?
Oh, so that's a story. So my background is in social work. And, but before I even got into that, I was in college my last year, pretty young, 22. And I just started getting this feeling, of that I was going to end up speaking and writing and helping a lot of people. I would see like Dave Ramsey or Joyce Meyer or Joel Osteen. And I'm like, whatever this is, like, I think I'm going to do something like that. But I never felt like I'm going to have a financial business or be a pastor or a minister. And so that was like, I was 22 and like, I just got this sense, but thought that the way that was going to be accomplished was through traditional work, because I knew nothing about entrepreneurship or business, sales, marketing, none of that. And, in school, I think we're so programmed as a society to go to college and get a job. Right. It's very not, maybe it's changed today, but at least when I was in school, it was like that whole entrepreneurship kind of thing was just not anything on my radar, and it doesn't run in my family. So I became a social worker because other mentors in my life, like pastors and small group leaders, recognized this gift that I had of being able to have this great empathy and compassion and encouragement to walk with people through a major struggle or life change or something. And they saw this over and over and over again from when I was a very young child up until, high school. And they were like, you would make a great counselor or a great social worker.
Right.
Because you have this amazing gift. So that kind of feedback, I took that and then chose that in college and went in and got that degree and chose that career. A year and a half into this career, I was like, this is not it. This is so far off the mark of where I believe I'm meant to be. But I had no idea how to even go about changing that because I was quite young and I just was overwhelmed with feeling like I just need to suck it up. Like, this is what people do. You have to push through it. Like work is just not always meant to be sunshine and roses.
I need to pay my dues.
Yeah. And you just got to work your way up. But like something much deeper than that was nagging at me. At first I had to work through like, am I being entitled and ungrateful and like the typical millennial that like, all the words going around.
Right.
And, but I pressed into God and I was like, no, I think he's calling me to something more. So I did some soul searching and very long story. There were quite a few things I had to get my life in order, get my spiritual life on track. I had to clear out a lot of things in my life that were a mess. And as I was obedient to that and surrendering to that and brave to do that, that's when the path became more and more clear. The path was always there. I kind of get this vision of like, imagine a room that's filled to the ceiling with boxes and clutter. But as you move each one out, eventually you start seeing a path form. Yes. It was always there. It just was always covered. So that's kind of what I feel like the process was for me with getting into this. And so I ended up going to a conference led by Dan Miller, who is the author of the book, 48 Days to the Work You Love. And because I was very unfulfilled in my job and all of that, I was like, okay, I want to find work that I love. And he's really big on finding your calling. And so I went to a conference that he led by faith. That's a whole divine story I told you. That was all divine. And everything that was being taught there was really like it all clicked. It all clicked. I knew exactly what I was meant to do with my life. I was given a plan, and ideas and support and guidance and examples of how to do that. And I left that conference knowing with confidence I meant to be a coach.
Wow.
And 2 weeks later, I had my first client, and 6 years today, here I am. So,
wow. So that conference was it was like a divine appointment at that time. He made it possible for you to get there. You got there and ran smack dab into purpose.
Yes. Not everyone's story is like that. That just happens to be my story. So I'm very aware of like saying like, look, this is how my journey unfolded. Yes. Doesn't mean you're always going to get that like exact clarity. That's how it worked for me. But if it doesn't work that way for you, that's okay. It's not like you're wrong. So
we can tell that you're a coach.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I love it. I love it. So 6 years ago, you started as a coach. Now, I know because when you reached out to me, you were talking to me about how the Lord was really speaking to you. I assume about you first, because that's how it always worked. Like he's talking to us first about our stuff. And that he was starting to talk to you about force versus flow. So tell me that story. Like what was going on in your life? Was it how you were running your business? Was there something that God was having to do on the inside of you first? How did all this come about?
Oh my goodness. So, I tell you the story of how like, I go to this conference and then, 6 years later, here I am. The 6 years of coaching and doing business was not a smooth ascent. It was, and this is so interesting to me. What I found is like, people could be doing things that they are called to do as far as like the mission and stuff. And this was, but it gets hijacked by a lot of junk. Okay. So this is what happened to me. It was like, I know God asked me to do this, but it was full of stress, anxiety, scarcity. I was the basket case in this. And I had so much inner work to do. So it's funny how he calls us to do things. And like through that, I'm becoming who he ultimately wants me to become.
Yes.
But I was a mess through that. And so, I was doing this for 4 years, doing all the things. Call it all the things.
All the things.
Diving into
every webinar, every marketing strategy,
yes.
every client acquisition strategy, all the things.
Yes. Listening to every podcast, reading every book, like doing everything they tell me to do. And I had nothing to show for it except a constantly bleeding out bank account and definitely a heart sick, because hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I just reached the point of like feeling burned out that I was going to throw in the towel. I was like, this is way too hard for me. And like something's off. I can't figure out what it is. So God sent me a coach, a life coach. And I wasn't looking for her. I was looking for a business coach to give me another strategy,
Right.
So thank God she was very in tune with that. And like, and this is kind of what we do now, the same thing, but like, so it started off as business mentoring, which she immediately saw how much striving I was in, how much stress I was in, how burned out I was, how fearful I was, how many mindsets and mental blocks and strongholds I had. And she just helped me attack that. And through that work is where I was able to be still. I knew she asked one powerful question and she saw me grinding it out.
Yep.
And she was like, typical coach kind of, I witnessed, I'm witnessing all of the work that you are doing. And I want to ask you, is there anything that you could be doing that you are not doing to make this business work? And it hit me and I got very emotional. I said, no, I am doing everything I can and more. And she's like, I agree. So what do you think the invitation is from God? What is he asking you? And I just started crying because I was like, and I knew deep down she was right. She was hitting something, that I was getting invited to rest and to let go and to be still. But I didn't know how to do that. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, this was before I was married. We were engaged. I was like, I'm saving for a wedding. Like, I've got bills to pay. Like, I'm supposed to just stop working. Like, I'm supposed to just let all of this go. And, but I did. And it was the best thing. So for 6 months, I let it go. And
6 months.
Yes. 6 months of letting it go as a single woman at the time. Okay, because there's a lot of people that are like, well, I don't have a husband. It's like, I didn't either at the time. So 6 months of the first 2 weeks were wildly uncomfortable for me. I was a mess. I was like, I can't do this. Like, and she was just so supportive. And out of that emerged learning how to do business in the power of God. And that's when the signature message that he wanted me to have started coming forward. And it was this whole concept of flow versus force, because as I was learning to do things by his grace, and now I say flow, I would be able to tell, like, this feels forced. Because I was like, this feels very forced. And that was my invitation to let go, step back, let's assess what's going on. And then there are things that just were like almost effortless. It was just so packed full of power and joy and energy. And that was the flow. And so that's when this whole concept of flow versus force started. And I introduced this concept to other people and they loved it. They got it right away. It resonated in their spirit. It was easy to grasp. And, and so after disappearing off the internet for 6 months, no content.
I was going to dig into that 6 months a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
After disappearing off the internet, no content, no marketing, no networking, no offline or online business. I get on and I slowly start, like I said, introducing this concept. And then I just felt like this needs to be a program. I think God had asked me to make this a program. I put small little feelers out there to people. And in 7 days, that program was booked. And I never had success. Like I didn't do a big marketing campaign. I didn't have email. I simply just put one video out and shared it with people that I felt God was highlighting. And they immediately was like, let's get on the phone. I need to learn more about this. Yes. And then boom, they enrolled. I was like,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is resonating with people, there's a need there. I want to go backwards for a second though, because I want to talk about this 6 months. So 6 months, you were not doing any marketing. You weren't focusing on your business at all. Tell me what was going on with you and God for 6 months of pulling away from your business.
Whew. So much. A lot of it. So one of the things I had to learn is that there's a mental grind as well. And so I may have took my hands off as far as like the active doing. It took me a while to learn to stop mentally thinking and strategizing, processing, and to like really let it go. In that time, this was right before my book, The Messy Middle, was getting released. And I was a basket case with that too, because I had to overcome the fear of being seen. I knew it was a new level and a next level, and like all of these insecurities were getting provoked, and the temptation to tear it all down and to hide and to sabotage was really strong there. So in that time, I was learning who I am as a daughter of the King. That was what I had to learn. I am not my work. I am not what I earn. I am not what I do. And that was the most significant 6 months. It was intense. It was difficult. But through that, that's where I really learned my true identity. We talked about this in our Facebook Live. Identity is key. And I think the reason why we get into grind is that we step out of identity or forget who we really are.
Yeah.
And that's where I really had to learn who I am and heal a lot of wounds from my upbringing and all of the stuff that adds to that. And really learn him as Father and King and righteous judge and, my vindicator and the one who has my back.
So that people are listening to this and they're saying, okay, I heard her say she was single at the time. I know you're married now, but she was single at the time. I heard her say that. And I just heard her say she took off business for 6 months. So the people are thinking, how in the world did you survive for 6 months? Financially, that's what they're wondering. How did you survive financially for 6 months without doing your business? How in the world did that play out? How did God show himself as himself during that time for you?
Oh, so it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't the way that I would want it, but he would show up with little opportunities, like randomly, like people would randomly call me to babysit for a week or do little things here and there, or I would sell something, or somebody would be led to give me money. Honestly, I had to learn to receive. That was a big thing. And
that's a huge thing.
Yes. Learning how to receive, especially, as my social work background, we get teachers, like these service-based people. tend to give and have a very hard time receiving. And that God wanted to teach me how to truly receive.
Yes.
And so in that season, I had to learn that. And I cried the first few times because I wanted to make money myself. I wanted to be independent and self-sufficient. And but I also was just so touched by how God uses the body to truly take care of each other and each other's needs in each season that we are in. I was in a season of resting. So that's when he called other people to sow in and help cover.
I love that. And I think it's important to share that because a lot of people might feel a tug from God, maybe not for 6 months, but for some people, it would be terrifying if God just said, take your hand off your business for 2 weeks or, for a month. That would be terrifying to many people, right? But the beauty of that is that you get to see who he is. Like you learn yet another facet of his character and experience it, not just in your head, but you get a revelation of it in your heart because you have experienced him in that way, So I think that's powerful. That's really awesome. So you've been working. I know you use grace over grind in your flow versus force.
Oh yeah, we do. This was new to me, like the whole flow versus force. I felt like I was the only one, like me and my coach seemed to be the only one getting this. And I was like, because all of these people, I'm like, I was like, God, can you bring me a community or show me leaders? I know I'm not the only one. It feels that way. Yes. But like, I need you to bring me some people on my path where I don't feel alone, because most who I've learned with are Christians that have business, but they're not necessarily understanding the whole concept of grace over grind or flow versus force. Right. And that is where I came across you and then your book, and I read it. I was like, this is what we need in flow versus force. We are all reading this.
I love that.
And working through this. And I love, because I didn't have a book. I just had a program. So you created the resources and supportive materials that we can use to help cement or prepare the hearts of what is about to occur. So I love that. It's such a beautiful way that he works.
Yeah, that's kingdom collaboration, right? I mean, mm-hmm. That's the same thing that, we experienced when we started Igniter's mentoring program. It was like we were going through some books, and I don't even think that when we did the first round of Igniters, I don't think we used not one book written by me. Mm-hmm. It was a while before there was a book that was written by me that was used in it, but yet there was the perfect resources out there to support where we were headed and what we were looking to do. And I think that's a really powerful way, because I think a lot of people also get stuck in this thing where it's like, oh, they have to create all the resources. They have to do all the things. They've got to get, I've got to create my signature this so that I can create this, when really the body of Christ operating together looks like, wow, there may be something right there that adds to exactly what's on my heart. So why would I delay? Why would I delay when there's something right there that'll be a benefit to people and that's in line with what I'm looking to do? So I applaud you for that, because not everybody will do that.
It's like, right? Like I was like that too. I think we get this whole like illusion that we have to have it all, but like, I mean, gosh, it's so much. We're just going to burn ourselves out if we try to do that. And I love when other people have something that supports it, because it's like, I support you in your mission. You're like, we're all, we all have the same Father.
Yes.
Like, we're not missing out on anything.
That's right. That's right. That's so good. Share with me one of your favorite stories, protecting your client's identity and all, but share with me like one of your favorite stories of a shift and what that shift has meant for one of the entrepreneurs that you work with.
Oh, there's so many. It's hard to pick.
One of your favorites.
Yes. One of them came to me, and she's a very high achiever and knows how to get something done and knows how to get results. But she was emotionally and mentally just tapped out. And I sensed the same thing. I bet you, like, my coach saw the same thing in me. And she had many wounds from her upbringing, messaging about from her mother to never depend on a man, to always like be this strong, independent woman, and to constantly work. She grew up in sports as well. So there was that whole like, you got to be the best, be number one. She was also taught that like the way that she received love or felt like she perceived that she got love was by being number one and being the best. So that's what was driving her behavior. So identifying that was a huge revelation for her. And she was brave enough to let it go and change that. And that's what's so amazing, because these are not easy things to let go. When you really are convinced that this is the only way you will receive love or be loved, being willing to let that go is so courageous and strong. It's very inspiring to watch that.
Yeah.
So I supported her through that. And of course it was uncomfortable, because you're learning like, no, I'm worthy. I am loved just as I am, without being the best, without like having to make all this money and be number one. And so I sat with her through that. And it was messy, just like my process was.
The messy middle, you say.
Yes. And, it was so funny. I noticed this pattern, like with every one of my clients, there was a moment of being still. They were all called to let something go and be still, all of it. And they all needed the support and to be transformed into who they are. She now is such a bold woman of faith. Like, she is influencing the organization that she is pretty top in. She's actually in network marketing as an ambassador. And so she is influencing the CEOs and owners with this whole concept. They were like, she was actually going to step down. And then she had this conversation because she felt led, like, I think I'm going to have to step down from this. But the reason she needed to have that was to open the door to conversation for her to get to the top. And as she explains all of this, they're like, we were so inspired by your story and what you shared. We are going to start implementing all of this in all of our onboarding and training curriculum.
So good.
And yeah, we want it. So like, I just love how powerful this is for leaders and how the multiplication effect.
Yes.
Massive, because she's leading, she got a stage and, 30,000 people, like, and she's sharing the story of identity. She's open about her faith, something she also had to work through of, she had some wounds from that as well. And like, she showed me like voicemails of like, gosh, I just had this conversation with this woman in a hotel room. She's like, listen to this. And like, the woman's like, after speaking to you, we were so inspired. My husband and I are going back to church.
Wow.
And like starting to pursue a relationship with God, because what you have overcome and accomplished and what you have is so attractive that I don't want another day without what you have.
Wow.
And so that's incredible. I love that. And I have many stories of like that. Like, many of my clients have that kind of impact, and I just love it. It blows my mind.
That's so good. That's what it's about. It's like, because the kingdom of God, it is attractive, right? And so when we walk that out, and when people get to experience us, and even through our breakthroughs and the things that we've got to walk through, that is attractive, right? And so I love that so much. That's so good. Mm-hmm. I could just sit on that for about a minute or so.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep going. I want to talk to you. I have two more things I want to talk to you about. You defined yourself as a millennial.
So I'm on the older tail end of millennial. You're
on the older tail of millennial now. Now,
yeah.
Okay. So there's people, and you're in an industry, like your business is in coaching. And I believe that there's probably a lot of people who are kind of feeling like this tug to be in that space, but yet feel a hesitation because of their age and feeling like they can't step into that because of their age. And I want to know, number one, if you dealt with any of that. I mean, the Lord gave you a vision at 22. So you saw some things ahead and you just kind of walked that out. But I want to know whether you've struggled with any of that. And if so, or if not, what's kind of your encouragement to somebody who might be kind of struggling with that right now?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I struggled with that right away. And God knew I would. And this is how I love, He knows what probably we're going to start, wrestling with Him with, or like disqualifying ourselves with. And He immediately gives us a verse or some word of encouragement to hold on to. So when I started realizing that I was going to be a coach, I didn't quite understand like my niche or what. I believe me that I resist calling myself a life coach because I was 25.
Right. That's all I'm saying.
And I was like, I can maybe a career coach for millennials. Oh, like if you see the story, I was like, okay, I'm a quarter life crisis. So I'm working with my peers. Like, oh, I was dodging the whole thing. And he gave me the verse, I think in Timothy, or where Paul is talking to Timothy, do not let anyone look down on you because you are young. He told me that right out of the gate. And I held on to that and stood on that and held on to it. And did I get pushback? Yes, I did. When I talked to somebody that was, maybe midlife in their 50s or 60s, they're almost mockingly, you're 20 something and you're a life coach. And to just stand, and God would give me amazing answers. I was like, I just believe that wisdom doesn't necessarily have an age, not all of the time. And if you were called to something, you are qualified to do it, and that God has a special gifting that He works in and through you. And age isn't the end all be all. So, and it was as I stepped into that, it was interesting because most of my clients were the age of my parents, if not older, and had significantly more accolades and accomplishments than I did, much more education, experience, all kinds of things. But the ones I was called to work with didn't have a problem with my age. They saw something in it and they wanted it, and they knew that I could help them get whatever it was. So that was the good thing too. Of those who I'm really meant to, I don't have to spend time persuading them and proving myself to them. I never had to do that. It was those that, do you get some dismissive people? Sure. I mean, I still get that today from time to time. It's very rare, but I know that they're not really who I'm meant to work with. So it can more easily love them and send them off, like wipe the dust off your feet, like
release.
Yes. Like love you, bless you, and goodbye.
Yes. No, that's really powerful. And the thing is, it's also a testimony of working by the power of God's grace, because there's wisdom that comes through our experiences. And then there's godly wisdom that just comes because God gives it. It's just something, that's it. And so part of partnering with God is tapping into the supernatural resources of God, which have no age requirement.
Right. Exactly.
So that's so good. I appreciate you sharing that, because I believe that's going to be freeing for a lot of people. And the fact that you said, listen, the ones that I was supposed to work with, they didn't have a problem. And by the way, most of my clients are like my parents' age. That's so good. That's so good.
Or have PhDs or Juris Doctorate, or they're medical doctors and like they're top level directors or executives, like the people God has brought on my path. And amazing stuff. I could have written myself off and be like, well, I don't have a blah, 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 or I'm not whatever. But it's what He's asked me to do and who He's asked me to reach. And yes, I do believe the revelatory spiritual gifts are really big in what I do.
Yes.
And the spiritual gift of wisdom and knowledge and discernment definitely get heavily activated in that. And I think that's what really puts them in awe of like, how I had one client who was like, it's like you can see into people's soul. I say, like, he's like, you can read. He's like, I've never met anybody that was like that. Now, he was somebody that God brought on my path that wasn't a believer, but saw something going on and was blown away, and I've worked with him and it's been quite cool too.
I love that. That's so good. Okay. One other question for you. I know, at least from my experience, even when God gives us like a revelation of something and really shifts our heart in something, there's always more and growing in him in that thing. And so for you, so like right now, I have my own stretching and living out, working by the power of God's grace instead of my own grind. Like there's always another level of stretching in that, right? What is God working with you on now in flow versus force? Like what's your current, like, here's where God's working on me right now.
Oh, so I have, okay, you could tell I'm in the midst of all of this. How do I put this to words? Put words to it. So I have said that when we're getting promoted, one thing I have consistently noticed is every new level, there's always something we have to let go. There's like a shedding that happens. And when I look back on my journey, like that has always been the case. Now, the more maybe mature I get, like I don't know what proper word to use, the harder some of the things are to let go. Things that I really love, things that are actually a really good thing, that I've cherished, that I feel God is asking me to put down. Those are really hard. And I still tend to wrestle with him on that because I'm like, why? Like, you're getting all this glory. There's so much amazing healing happening. Like, why would you ask me to put that down? And I just would have a hard time understanding it, because it's one thing if it's just like, let go of the toxic relationship,
It's like
but
obvious. I should let go, even though it's complicated.
Yeah. But like, to let go of something where you just feel God's hand and anointing all over it and his breath all over it and see the evidence of him, but then he is asking you to let it go. Those are the hardest ones for me. And that's what I'm in the middle of. And I do it, and I am doing it. It takes a different level of trust and faith, because I also don't always get immediately handed the next thing. And in the beginning I was, and I think because it's the maturing, like the infant, from infant, the infants kind of get coddled a little bit more, but the daughters of the king, from a child to the daughter, like a grown, it's like, you can handle this, you can tough it out. And so that's kind of the thing of like, I kind of want the immediate handoff. Like, okay,
right. You're like, that worked out really great before.
Yes. I release it to you and I want the immediate reward. I want the immediate thing. But like, man, to let something go, that's very, very hard. And then to not have something immediately, and you're in that tension, in that space of like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where we're going. I don't understand it, but I'm trusting you.
Yes.
And this is where like you really get to work on flow versus force.
Yes.
Because believe me, do I want to force something to happen?
Yes.
Like, I don't want to wait anymore.
I've got ideas.
I was like, I want to execute this and do this because like, I feel like we've got to go. We've got places to go, lives to impact and influence. And like, but just waiting for him to open those doors and go before you, and trusting in that timing and the way he's doing it. Because I know I have an anchoring piece that I know he's doing a lot behind the scenes.
Yes.
He's doing a lot more than I can even see. And I'm standing on that.
That's good. So. Oh, that's rich. All right. This has been so good. Stephanie, how do people get more information about you and what you're doing?
The best way to connect with me is at my website, movedbypurpose.net. I have a community of Christ-centered women that feel called to transform lives. So I tend to work with, transformational leaders. And I have a Facebook community and group with that, but that's all can be found at movedbypurpose.net. And I also have my book available. The book itself is free. The shipping and handling, you're charged a small fee of that if you want to take advantage of that. That's also found at movedbypurpose.net if you look at the book tab.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for sharing with me today. I asked you a couple tough questions. You handled it with grace.
Thank you. It was fun. I love tough questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and spread the word. And don't forget, you can gain access to even more resources, plus a thriving community of fire starters by visiting our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com.